Okay, this is a question which combines completing the square with sketching and finding equation of line of symmetry of the graph. Okay, so how do you complete the square? Firstly, you need to express it in the form a, which is 1, ax square plus bx. So your b is minus 4 plus c. Your c is minus 1. Okay, after you have done this, remember, put this one side, force this to become a complete square. Okay, if it's minus 4, you put minus. If it's plus 4, you put plus. Divide this number by 2 and ask yourself what is hiding inside here. X minus 2 square, right? Hiding inside x minus 2 square is x square minus this times 2, that's 4x, and then square this, that's plus 4. So you see, you actually want x square here minus 4x, you want it, but there is hiding inside here a plus 4 which you don't want. So what you need to do is to minus 4 here, and that will give you x minus 2 square. Must press calculator. This minus belongs to the 4. Minus 4 minus 1, that will be your answer. Okay, now what's the purpose or what's the usefulness of completing the square? From this completed square, you see that the coefficient or the number in front of the x square is positive. If it's positive, that means it's a happy face. If it's negative, then it's a sad face. Okay, so this is a positive face. That means there's a minimum point. And what's that minimum point? It is when x equals to 2. So you make this, become 0, your x will be 2, that will be your 2 here, your x is 2, and when you cover this complete square, because when x equals 2, this whole thing is 0, right? This complete square is 0, your y is minus 5. So that's the purpose of completing the square. Okay, now of course in part A they didn't ask you to do this. I'm reminding you about this to prepare you for part 2. Now part 2, if they're asked to sketch the graph, you label x axis and y axis first, and the very first thing you need to do is to label the minimum point. Okay, because you know that this graph y equals to minus 1 minus 4x plus x squared is actually y equals to this. Okay, so as I mentioned, the y value is minus 5. The x value is when this whole complete square is 0. So it's when x equals 2. So it's 2 minus 5. Now you must label 2 minus 5 here. You cannot just label 2 then minus 5. Oh, sorry. You cannot just label 2 then minus 5 here, okay? You must label the coordinates 2 comma minus 5. Alright? Now how do you draw this graph? Because this graph, right, there are a few ways you can draw it. It can be like that, where it cuts at 2 positive x value and then this 2, 5. Or it could be like that, where it cuts at 0. Or it could be wider, where it cuts at 1 negative and 1 positive point. Okay, so how do you know where it cuts? You simply have to work from the original here, this graph. Okay, and then you press your calculator, mode 3 and all that. So you press 1 minus 4 minus 1, and that will give you 4.24. So it means that there is a 4.24 3SF, and there is a minus 0.236. That means there's a negative value, minus 0.236 3SF. Then you draw this. Okay, cutting here. So that's how your graph looks like. So that is how you know that actually is this graph and not the other two. Okay, that's why it's important to label your x-intercept. And how do you find this y-intercept? Now all these must be labeled. This minimum point must be labeled. This y-intercept especially must be labeled. How to find the y-intercept? Very simple. Your y-intercept, if you were to look at this equation, don't look at this equation, okay? You sub x equals 0, this will be 0, 0, so it's minus 1. So this is minus 1, okay? So I repeat, must label this, and label this, okay? Sometimes they don't require you to label this, alright? But if they require you to do it, then you can just use your calculator to help you. Alright, so that's all. Now, if they ask you to find the equation of line of symmetry, that's even easier. From here, you actually know already. The minimum point is 2 minus 5, right? So this line here must be x equals to 2. Okay, because this line actually will cut this quadratic graph into 2 halves. So your answer here is not just 2. The equation means you must have x equals to 2. So that's how you do the question.